evening, everyone. Good evening, everybody. I'm about to call the February meeting of the Cranston City Council to order. Clerk, please take the roll.
Present.
Present. Present. Present. Here. Present. Present. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Under public acknowledgments and commendations, we have the Cranston Parent Leadership Training Institute graduating class of 2019, Council Vice President Favicchio. Jeez.
Be it known to all that the City of Cranston City Council hereby issues this congratulatory citation to a number of people on their successful completion of the very first Cranston Parent Leadership Training Institute graduating class 2019, which promotes skills to help improve child outcomes through community involvement by working with children and their families and facilitate systems change for parent involvement with increased utilization of parents in policy making. The entire City Council extends its sincerest congratulations and very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses hope for the continuing success of all these recipients in their future endeavors. So I'd like to call the following people to the podium. Pauline Balab. You can come right up. Sure. You can come right up. Next we have April Barron. Congratulations. Next we have Teresa McFarland. Next we have Berta Santos. She's not here. Hold that one. Next we have Hazare Lopez. Is she here? Not here. Not here also. Rosa Gutierrez. Congratulations. Gladys Granados, not here either. And last, Trinity Briseño. Congratulations. And that's it.
On behalf of Cranston, did you want to say any words? Yeah. I'll put you on the spot.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilman President Rena and every city council member here for recognizing our PLCI graduates. They are the first graduating class for Parent Leadership Training Institute, run out of one Cranston, so we're very, very proud of them. I want to thank the president of CCAP, who runs the fiscal management, is here, Joanne Campbell, and Bernard Cooper, who wrote the grant and got it for us. So we're very excited, and for everybody that came tonight to recognize all the families that are here and that supported all of these lovely graduates in their 20-week course. They're all additionally receiving 6 credits from Roger Williams University, so we're very happy for that as well. And we also have the youngest graduate, which is an 18-year-old Cranston East student. So I want to congratulate them again.
Ayana, if you want, they can come here and you can take a photo.
Okay.
We'll break a minute for you.
Thank you very much.
In the front. Yeah. Why don't you get at the Herald, crack them real quick. Gus?
Some of these were from the last election because we never gave them.
Use this pen.
It doesn't matter, just if you do.
I have it.
Okay, it's fine, whatever.
Ayana.
Thank you to everybody in attendance tonight for allowing us to do that. We'd like to recognize community programs, community people, people that are involved in making Cranston better, and the One Cranston Group PLTI Leadership Training Program for Parents is definitely one of those things. Under public hearings, at this point, the floor is open to docketed matters. Not new business, that'll come later in the meeting. So anything on docketed matters, please keep the comments to 4 minutes. Name and address to the record when you speak. The floor is open.
Council President. My name is Dan Beardsley. I live at 130 Linden Road in the Edgewood section of Cranston.
Thank you.
I'm here this evening to publicly acknowledge and thank, on behalf of myself and several dozen other property owners, each and every member of the Council's Safety Services and Licenses Subcommittee for the unanimous vote on February 4th to deny Yardworks LLC any further extension of time to renew their permit for a trailer on their property, a permit, by the way, which has expired over 11 years ago. As I stated to the subcommittee on February 4th, their collective decision and vote renew my faith in those that serve at the local level of government, an institution that I proudly represented for over 42 years as director of the League of Cities and Towns. Also tonight, I have provided each of you with a portfolio of photographs which I took last week of the Yardworks property. Please take a look at them at your leisure, and while you are doing so, please ask yourself two questions. One, do these pictures look like any nursery which grows trees, ornamental shrubs, bushes, plants, annual or perennial flowers? If you ask me, it looks like a transfer station for industrial waste. Question two, would you like your home to be in a butter to yard works and contend with the daily noise, 6 days a week, of payloaders, dump trucks, gravel sifters, engine fumes, and clouds of dust which blanket our properties to such a degree that we cannot enjoy our yards or plan any outdoor activities except for Sundays. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. If that's true, each of you have a packet of 37,000 words. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Beardsley. To the administration, did you get a copy of this packet? Just as a follow-up, I'm going to add some questions later on. This is public comment, so I don't want to belabor the issue now, so I will hold my questions till later.
Good evening, Robert Wilson, 114 Mayflower Drive. I was here 3 weeks ago when this council, Safety Services Committee, voted unanimously to not allow the licensing to yard works for these trailers that they have on their property. And they are meeting this Thursday in municipal court to go over, their case is going to be dismissed in municipal court if yard works complies with what we talked about 3 weeks ago, which was removing these trailers from the property, which they still have not done. And we're 3 days away from the last municipal court hearing. I spoke to Solicitor Igliozzi a couple of Saturdays ago, and he told me that he worked out some sort of agreement with Yardworks' attorney that if they remove the trailers from the property and come into compliance, that he will waive all fines and the matter will be dismissed. Well, I'll be calling Solicitor Igliozzi tomorrow because this hasn't been done. And it was just recently brought to my attention by the administration that the head building official there is fine with what they have done. And what that is they've moved these trailers 40 feet from their original location, and they're still being used. So how is it that the building official in the city of Cranston is allowing this to continue? There seems to be some sort of disconnect somewhere. I can't quite figure out where it is, but we're going to get down to it. But there's a disconnect somewhere, because these trailers need to go. That's number one. And this is just one issue of many that exist down at this property where Yardworks is completely out of compliance with what is allowed in the C5 zone property and what is not. And I don't have time to get into all of that tonight, but trust me, there's a lot there. The other thing I sort of have an issue with is that on that meeting on February 4th before the Safety Services Committee, 5 days prior, on the 31st of January, Yardworks just somehow miraculously received a new zoning certificate that now claims that they're a contractor yard. Because prior to that, they were, what does it say here? The proposed type of use was for parking trucks and equipment. And then prior to that, they were a lineup of nursery stock and related materials. So they've been there since 2005, and they have 3 zoning certificates. I have one here and 2 other ones here. Now, it clearly states right on the zoning certificate that if it's, I can't read it because I didn't bring my readers with me, but more or less, if the information on here is not truthful or incomplete, which it's definitely incomplete, I think you all saw it, that it can be revoked. So why is revocation not happening? I'm a little confused why we have these ordinances on the books if we're not following them and things aren't being enforced. If these trailers are not removed from the property prior to the final municipal court hearing this Thursday at 9 a.m. on February 28th, then fines should be levied against yard works by the city. That's the story. I mean, it's not even up for debate. That's the story. So I'm a little confused why we just take everything that the building official's office has to say as God, and that's it. And then whatever they say, that's that. And the building official who, I'm not going to get into names, but I've spoken with him many times in person, over the phone, and everything else. And he also said to me that he has no problem whatsoever with the decibel levels we had decibel testing done back in 2008. And it was conclusive that they are over the allowable decibel levels from a C5 zone into an A6 zone, residential zone. And you can't do that. But the building official seems to think that's okay because the noise started at the C5 zone, so it can go wherever it wants to after that. Even if it's over the allowable decibel levels, it could just be loud wherever it wants to be. And that's not the way the law is set up. That's incorrect. So somebody needs to go to the building inspector's office and follow up with them and see where they're getting their information because it's not accurate and it's incorrect. And it's not in compliance with the law. And that's what this is about. Those trailers need to be removed, and they need to be removed immediately. I don't care if the building official said they've been set aside, they've been moved 40 feet. It doesn't really matter, because as long as they're on the property, they're not in compliance. So I'm here tonight to let you know that's the current situation. Nothing has changed since 3 weeks ago. And I have to be here tonight to tell you this instead of having dinner with my family. And that gets a little bit annoying, too. But we're not going to stop. We're going to constantly keep coming after this thing until the law is followed. So, I mean, that is what it is, and I'll be following up with Solicitor Adriozzi, like I said, tomorrow. And the beat goes on, but, we're not going to stop because the law needs to be followed. So I'm just letting you know this. They haven't moved the trailers. And it's funny, too, because one of the owners of Yardworks, Michael Fox, reached out to 2 council members on this council recently, asking them if he could talk to us. He wants to try and make good. He wants to be a good neighbor, and all this baloney that we've heard for 12 plus years. And it's funny because one of the council members gave him my cell phone number, and I was okay with that. And I haven't done a call yet from Michael Fox. Not that I'm even interested in talking to him. I'll listen to what he has to say. But if he's so interested in trying to work with us, why hasn't he called me? Just curious. So that's what we're dealing with here. They tell you one thing and they do something else. I know plenty of people like that. And typically I don't want anything to do with those types of people. But unfortunately in this situation, this company is right in our backyard and I have no choice but to have to deal with these people. They're not good people. They haven't followed the law. And this administration is not following the law and it needs to be followed. And I want to know when those trailers are going to be removed off of the property completely. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Name and address to the record.
My name is Timothy Rio. I live at 10 Richard Street.
Good evening, Timothy.
Having a serious problem with the property of 7 and 9 Richard Street, between plowing and landscaping. The plow driver has been constantly, for the last 4 years that I've lived here, been plowing snow in front of my house, onto city streets, onto the city sidewalk, where I have to remove it. I'm 53 years old, I'm no spring chicken anymore, and it gets difficult to move all that snow. Plus, I have a daughter who is deaf, and having to come out in the middle of the big giant snow piles that were being left there is dangerous for her. I approached the plow driver the first time to ask him. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning. 4 o'clock in the morning, and he cussed me out, told me to get out of his way so he could do his job. I merely asked, please don't plow it in front of my house. The next time I encountered him, he shoved me to try and get me to fight him. I called the police department, filed a report. The officer tried to figure out where he sped off to, and I never heard of anything ever coming of it. Recently, I took a video recording of him plowing the snow toward my house, and he started cussing me out again, which I could play it here. The problem is I think some of the stuff he said is quite offensive. Some people may not really like to hear it, so if I could play it to the council later, then, or I could play it for Councilman McCauley in private. That way, he's seen it. I just don't think it's proper to show here. I've also had problems with their landscaping. They blow all their leaves out into the street and all into my yard and into my neighbor's yard. And my neighbor is here with me tonight. We're really getting sick and tired of, basically we feel like we're at the whim of all the businesses over there. We've got cars going up the road the wrong way. It's a one-way street. There's cars speeding down it. Just the other night, I was trying to back my truck in. I have two big trucks. I can't pull them in forward because there's no way I can get them out because I've got cars that end up blocking my driveway or halfway across the driveway. There's constantly people coming out of the parking lot for 7 and 9, which also has the Chinese store in the same parking lot. Well, they come out, and then they go the wrong way, and then they cut through Sonia's lot. The other night, backing the truck in, car almost took the front end of my truck off. I'm trying to back in, he didn't want to wait. When I honked the horn, he got out of his car, started yelling at me, trying to get me into a fight. Well, sometimes I'm ex-military. I have PTSD, and I don't normally back down. The dog actually got me to stop this time. I'm just fed up with, I feel like it's just like, ever since I moved here, and I moved from the country, maybe I'm not used to the city. I lived in Georgia. I lived way out in the county. I had 15 acres. Here, I'm on a little block. But I try and take care of my house. I try and take care of my yard. And it seems like the businesses just seem to have the house.
Director Perillo, could you give him one of your cards so we can follow up with the administration and see if we can solve some of these issues? Thank you. So I'm going to have them with the administration give you a card so we can work on it collaboratively and see if there's a way we can help you.
I will say that the last time that it did snow, he did not plow the stuff in front of my house because I did call the police. The situation had gotten heated finally. I'd had enough. And the officer that responded told him, you can't do it, and now he's plowing it in front of their residence. It's not stopping, the landscaping. Last time I asked the guy not to do it, and I usually ask very nicely the first time, and I'm usually told to shut up and go back in my yard.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you for your time.
Hi. I'm Greg Brennick. I live at 19 Richard Street. I can speak to the same problem. I've been in contact with the owner of the property through his realty company, and the issue is more that the owner no longer lives in the city of Cranston. He moved to Florida, I think, 2 years ago, and his realty company won't answer any of this. I've been in contact with Councilman McCauley, too. He's been extremely helpful on the situation. But I think one thing that would be helpful and one thing that I would put in front of the council, hopefully as far as a remedy would go, is there is absolutely nothing other than private legal resources here to deal with the kind of problem of an owner who doesn't care because they're not looking at it, and an out-of-town realty company whose entire profit model is based on the fact that they don't have to pay to do this stuff. I have an easement onto the back of my property that their parking lot sits on. I have to call several times to get them to clean, which is now dwindled down to once a year. The plow driver complaint could be handled by a realty company that was in any way, shape, or form, answering to the neighbors' basic complaints. Hey, your plow guy is plowing onto the street, plowing onto my property. They won't do that. Several calls went unanswered to a tree that fell not only on their own tenant's car, fell on my fence, fell on my car. This is all just basic property neglect. And there's really nothing that can be done about that in the Cranston Code as far as we can tell. You could take them to court as a private nuisance, but that does cost time and money. And as far as we can tell, the owner has almost no knowledge of this himself. I mean, I have spoken to him on one occasion. I would not exactly call him, riveted by our problems, but he was not unwilling to work with us, but now we can't even get in touch with him. I would ask, please, for the council to very soon take up the idea that some of these landlord laws, and we're not talking about a person who owns a property and rents some part of it to somebody and maybe couldn't afford, professional landscaping or something like that, but a person whose entire job it is to invest in real estate, is not paying any money to keep up with this, and it's affecting the character of the neighborhood, and for no real reason. Nobody benefits. Their own tenants don't benefit. These are wonderful people whose kids go to school with ours. In some cases, they've lived there for 5 years. They've lived since this property has been sold and watched as the entire community has been degraded by their inaction on any of these. So I can also speak to Tim's experience. I would ask that maybe soon somebody could take that up as an idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else to speak on any docket items? Good evening. Name and address to the record.
Jessica Marino, Natick Avenue in Cranston. This evening, I'm here to speak on the issue of the proposed advice and consent for the appointment of Barbara Ann Fenton on the Conservation Commission. This, I cannot stress enough, this is nothing personal. It is the fact that she is the wife of the mayor, and the mayor is seeking to appoint her to a commission in this city. That should not be. There is a state ethics commission, which I'm sure you're all aware of. At the very least, if for some strange reason that this council was actually giving merit to this, giving serious consideration to this appointment, I would think that at a minimum, an advisory opinion would have been sought from the state ethics commission. I can say this, only the State Ethics Commission knows what they would, their decision would be. I can tell you this as a resident, as a citizen, this would create a big stain on this city, and that stain would not just go with the mayor when he left. Again, like Alan, there's nothing against him. This is just factual. It's wrong. It's not ethical. And it's insulting to the residents of the city and the citizens to imply, and not imply, by acting upon this appointment, you are telling us all as residents that there is no one else in this city that is qualified to sit on that Conservation Commission except for the mayor's wife. Just because there are 6 other people doesn't give her any more of an advantage than anyone else to sit on that committee. And it's insulting. It was disappointing to see. He's seeking advice and consent. It's also your role as well. And when I say it's nothing personal, it would be the same as if it were my husband were the mayor or I were the mayor and I look to appoint my spouse on a commission. It just should not be. I hope you make the right call. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Moreno. We did receive some communication from the mayor today that he was withdrawing that appointment to the Conservation Commission at this point. That is the mayor's appointment. So he would have submitted the name. He is at this point withdrawing it from the council, so it will not be heard tonight. Anyone else in the public wish to speak?
Hi there.
Good evening. Name and address to the record.
What's that?
Name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Lynn Haughey. I live at 273 Alpine Estates Drive. speak into the mic, yeah, sure. It's on. Civil rights. Under the U.S. Constitution, our state constitution, and city ordinances, we as citizens are protected by laws that are instituted for the safety, health, welfare, and happiness of the people. The Johnston wind turbines are industrial in nature and not compatible with the residential community. These turbines have been cited disregarding the health, welfare, and safety of the residents impacted. Short-sighted planning has resulted in the creation of a problem that is known to adversely affect public health, quality of life, and compromise aesthetics and degrade community character. We are here again this evening to state publicly that these turbines are a nuisance to our community, and I'm sure some of the communities in Johnston as well. From overt noise to the subaudible infrasound noise, which is the real danger with these turbines, to the lessening of our property values, to the potential health effects, we are being subjected to a nuisance that should never exist in a residential community. So as purveyors of the laws that protect constituents, we ask, was the Board of Health consulted prior to installation, given the vast amount of information regarding adverse health effects industrial turbines cause? Was an economic impact study done prior to the installation? Certainly property taxes from communities are likely to decrease given the effects on our home values. Was an environmental impact study done prior to installation? Industrial turbines are known to disrupt wildlife, kill large quantities of birds and bats, and as a result negatively impact agricultural yield. Was an acoustical study performed by an independent acoustical expert, as it is recommended by experts in this field, as well as the World Health Organization, that 35 decibels is a reasonable proxy to protect nearby citizens from harmful infrasound? We don't have the answers to these questions. We've tried to obtain all meeting minutes from the town of Johnston, who tell us they are not ready, but my guess is that the answer is no. No studies were performed to make sure surrounding citizens are safe and protected. As property owners, our rights have not been taken into consideration. Our right to enjoy our homes, to enjoy the outdoors in our backyards has been adversely impacted. Our right to a healthy environment has been impacted. Our right to growing equity in our properties has been impacted. We in Alpine Estates once lived in a desirable community, but now we see real estate ads listing homes for sale in our community which say, "Great home for sale, no view of the wind turbines." We are now known as turbine estates, funny to some, but not to the homeowners living there. The short-sightedness of this placement, of these turbines is astounding. The impacts on our rights as property owners is just as astounding. And what recourse do we have? Long fights and legal fees. As your constituents, we ask that you assist us in getting the documentation we need to examine. We ask that you perform a noise assessment study to document the annoyance. We ask that you have the Department of Health conduct a strategic health impact assessment that to not only help us, but future towns that may and have been impacted by wind turbines. As we know, wind turbine operators have very deep pockets, but they have never won a common law case demonstrating that wind farms do not cause a nuisance. That's because they are. It's our hope that when the mayor of Johnston states that none of this is Cranston's business, that it lights a fire in your hearts and compels you to help us and to help maintain our peaceful homes and the rights we should have. Thank you.
Point of information.
Hi, Renee Patron, 2 Cassandra Court, Alpine Estates. I too would like to speak with you, and I do appreciate you allowing us to speak. But I just wanted to give you some more information because I do spend a lot of time researching the situation. And I did come across information written by a doctor in Vermont She's been practicing medicine since 1971, and she's a graduate of Harvard Medical School. Her name is Sandy Ryder. She has not been paid for any of her involvement, and she did not seek any of this out, but it was found to her by a patient. She has known the patient for several years, and in 2011, the patient suddenly developed severe insomnia, anxiety, headaches, ringing in the ears, and difficulty concentrating, very frequent nausea. Pretty much happened out of the blue, and for months, both the doctor and the patient were puzzled as to why it was happening. And then she found out about a new clinical entity known as wind turbine syndrome. She related this particular case to a very small turbine, 100 kilowatts, and it began generating power on the mountain in Vermont in the fall of 2011. She noted that she had begun seeing 4 additional patients living close to a larger project, all presenting with similar symptoms. There are already so many complaints in Vermont with relation to the wind turbines. It suggests that the current noise standards may be inadequate, that scientific data and studies upon which the current noise standards are based are either incomplete or just plain wrong. She spent 2 years reviewing all the relevant scientific literature, and she had 42 years of experience as a clinician to offer her observations and her comments. She stated that she does not doubt that these large turbines can and do cause serious health problems in a significant number of persons living nearby. Even though the vibrational acoustical mechanisms behind the harm are not completely understood, repetitive sleep disruption is often the most cited adverse effect, and disturbance of sleep causes stress over time and can exacerbate cardiovascular illness, chronic anxiety, and depression. It will worsen pre-existing medical problems, especially concerned are the most vulnerable among us, children and the elderly, those who are naturally more sensitive to sound and prone to motion sickness and migraines. But the position adopted by most of the large wind developers and their projects are far more about regulatory and health agencies. They have seen there is no evidence of a direct health effect from wind turbines. Rather, they claim the adverse health effect is an indirect situation due to the individual's negative attitude about the wind turbines. Therefore, they suggest it's like the people's fault. It's all in their heads. But not only is this incorrect, it's just disingenuous. There is simply no clinical justification for ignoring harm being done to individuals or communities, whether it's direct or indirect. On these grounds, simply put, harm is harm, whatever the mechanism. The sound standards are based on dBA and weighted acoustical measurements. They give particular weight to audible frequencies in the soundscape, but very little to no weight on low sound frequencies or infrasound, particularly below 10 megahertz, which compromises a significant portion of the sound generated by a large turbine. People do not necessarily hear this noise, and basing noise criteria solely on the single number ignores the unique nature of the sound produced by large wind turbines, which is consistently changing in its loudness, frequency, harmonics, pitch, and impulsive quality, which makes the qualities very intrusive and annoying. And I don't know if anyone saw yesterday or the day before that Channel 12 ran a story about our local fishermen. Apparently, the head of the Fishermen's Alliance is saying that the proposed wind farm, which will be offshore 15 miles near Martha's Vineyard, will negatively impact Rhode Island's fishing industry. It will chase pretty much every single species out of the area. But wind farms can coexist with the fishing industry when sited correctly. The location would disrupt the squid population in an irreversible and detrimental way. And if this sounds familiar, it's because people feel the same way about the wind farms being sited too close to residential communities. If they will harm squid, they will harm us. The situation is unacceptable on so many levels, and we need you guys to step up. Help the citizens of Western Cranston to shut these monsters down. If the city of Cranston can't protect its own citizens from harm, who will? Are we going to cover any of our expenses for this acoustical testing, the legal fees, the health care? And we really want to know why we weren't informed about these before they went up, so we could have done something about it before they're already erected. We were not given the opportunity. We will not go away. The city needs to hire an expert who can do some readings when we call and not wait 5 days to show up to help us out. Thank you, guys.
Hello, Jamie Cusman, 279 Alpine Estates Drive, Cranston, Rhode Island. Tough two acts to follow right there. But at the end of the day, I want to just talk about a couple of things. Obviously, I'm 2,000 feet away from the closest turbine, from the base of the turbine to my property. And I wanted to reach out to the city to see the way we're trying to communicate and getting an officer there. I think I'm working with Dan Perillo. I think that might be him in the back. I'm not sure. Perfect. We need to get a better way. I don't want to be the resident. I'm up all hours of the night working, paying off my house, trying to build some equity, and I don't want to be calling the police at 12:30 in the morning because at that time there's more urgency matters going on around the city. I don't want to take your resources that way, but we need to find a solution because after you drive by these, they're spinning nice and slow all day long, all day long. The sun goes down, people start eating dinner, they start spinning faster and faster and faster. What happens then? Noise increases, increases, increases. So from the hours of 10 p.m. till 6 a.m., typically, not every day, these things are spinning quicker than they do from 6 in the morning to 6 p.m. at night. We need that resource. I think there's only one officer or whoever can provide these sound studies that we need, but we need the ability to communicate with whoever it is to get them there at 12:30 in the morning when I'm sitting on my couch doing my work on my computer and I can hear it coming through my fireplace because it doesn't just cause a noise outside. Some houses, it causes noise inside, and that to me is unacceptable. I would ask for anyone to help me get that, and you can come right into my backyard and I'll walk you out there whatever time of the day it is, whatever day it is. Secondly, I lost my train of thought. I should have wrote some things down. But secondly, I would ask that when we are looking at these turbines, hang on, I wrote some notes here, but there is a civil rights violation here, and I would ask the city attorney or whoever, solicitor, to look into this. There's 250 fights across this country right now. The locations that are winning these fights are turning into a civil rights issue, and our civil rights, exactly what we said so eloquently, are being violated. They're being violated, and they were violated by the town of Johnston. Every day, I'm sure we're going to hear tonight that there's, town of Johnston followed everything they had, and they followed the law by the state, which is the softest law. That's why companies from all over the country trying to get into the Rhode Island to obstruct other people's backyards like they did to ours. But at the end of the day, there are 250 communities in this country that are fighting turbines. There's one in upstate New York. One town just prevented the other town next door from putting them up. Civil rights violations. We did not have the ability to fight this beforehand. And there are several people in this room and people that you know that are going to be running for mayor of Cranston. I read it in the Herald. I would ask you not to pull a mayor fund and keep it to the side, but I would ask you to make sure that you communicate these things to your residents in the future so there's no more surprises, because that to me is unacceptable as a taxpayer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing none, that portion of the meeting is now closed. One thing before we move away from public hearings, to the administration, I know there is a hearing on Thursday regarding yard works, but I'll be calling an executive session for Monday at 5:30 to receive an update from everything that happened on Thursday, so the council will know if the trailers are gone, if they didn't comply with the ordinance, if fines were assessed, basically what's been happening the last month. I just don't feel that it's the right path, and I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure many members of the council have a lot of questions. So I'm going to be calling an executive session for Monday to A, make sure that the hearing happened on Thursday and everything that came out of that hearing, so we're up to speed, and B, so we can ask some questions as to some of the things regarding the zoning certificate, things that happened at the last safety services meeting that I know we all have some questions on. Councilman Stichels, Jeff?
Yes, on the special meeting. I'm going to be on vacation on Monday. I'm coming back Tuesday, and I think I've spent more time on this than any member of the council. So
then I will not have it on Monday. I will look at the calendar. If you could let me know what next week looks like for you. Any day on Monday?
Any day, but I should be back Tuesday, but you know the way airplanes are.
Okay, so I'll look Wednesday to the end of the week. I'll look at my schedule and I'll email the council and see if we can get a date.
Thank you very much.
So it won't be Monday, but we'll have it next week because the council needs to be updated based on what's been happening. Secondly, I know that people from Alpine Estates, this was supposed to be on the docket last month, so unless anyone objects, I'd like to suspend the rules to hear the Alpine Estates matter now, because I think it would be unfair if they came here last month. We had to wait till this month because of an absence to have them sit here for an hour while we do our business. So,
Second.
I need you to make the motion, Councilman.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to give an administrative update from the administration to the residents of Alpine Estates.
Second. I have a second. Under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes. 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 So the matter before us right now is an update from the administration on the Alpine Estate wind turbine issue. Attorney Verdecchia, if you could tell us what you have found through your research.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have much in the way of substantive changes to report. The last time we were here, as you may recall, I had given opinions on the viability of doing some type of a public nuisance or maybe even a private nuisance action to try and address the residents' concerns. After that meeting, there was a very extensive article in Lawyers Weekly, Rhode Island Lawyers Weekly, in which several attorneys throughout the state of Rhode Island were asked to weigh in on the issue. And these were attorneys who, unlike myself, basically specialized in nuisance law. And unfortunately, or fortunately for me, I guess, depending on how you look at it, those attorneys, by and large, without exception, pretty much agreed with the legal opinion I had given to the council the last time this was on the docket. Now, some of my concerns went to the procedural aspect of what took place, and by that I mean the permits, the licenses, so on and so forth, and as to whether or not those were properly followed. So what I did do was, Attorney Marcello, who is also a city solicitor, he actually had looked into that quite extensively. He communicated, we've been in communication for the past several weeks, and basically, I could read essentially what he had said to me, and he said that the zoning hearings in Johnston were about 2 years ago. There were also some other, and he's got non-zoning hearings on the project, for which there was no objection. Now, he also goes on to state that the main problem from a zoning standpoint is that renewable energy isn't allowed use in the zones in Johnston. The operator received all local, state, federal permits. So, you know, again, unfortunately, we're sort of back to square one. It appears that the proper procedures were followed. And I think after considering this and looking at this over the last several months, I think the problem here is that the zoning laws simply did not keep up with technology. And by that I mean, by way of example, under the state's zoning laws, The rule is that only people within the 200-foot radius, the abutters within 200 feet, are entitled to notice. And that notice requirement was probably enacted several decades ago. I don't think anybody at the time could have envisioned solar farms, wind turbines, and things of that nature. And the zoning notice requirements simply have not kept up. So I think that's probably the main problem. I know many of the residents feel that, you know, they should have received some type of notice, whether it be from the town of Johnston or from the city, but the bottom line is that there simply was no requirement that there be any notice beyond that 200-foot radius. Now, and I'm going to tell you something else, just from a personal standpoint. I've been on Plainfield Pike. The last time I opined on this, I had not seen these turbines. And I've been on Plainfield Pike a few times, and believe me, I can certainly understand where these residents are coming from. I mean, when you come down that road and you see these things, they look like something out of War of the Worlds. I mean, they're actually frightening to look at. So it is perfectly understandable where they're coming from. I did notice one thing. It appears I did review the decision of the Rhode Island, the Johnston Zoning Board, which was dated back in November of 2017. And it appears that even though there was, or the turbines, renewable energy wasn't allowed use in that particular zone, it appears that they did need height relief. And they were granted height relief. And the reason they were seeking that is because I believe it's the size, not only the height of the tower or the base that holds the blades, but the blades themselves. And they were given that relief by the zoning board. Now, someone might say, well, why can't that be challenged? Well, the reason it can't be challenged is because, number one, the time for appeal has elapsed, and number two, living in Cranston, there probably isn't jurisdiction to, or standing, as we call it in legal parlance, to even be able to appeal that. But that did catch my eye, that they did need some type of added relief from the zoning board. Now, whether or not that's significant and might provide some type of avenue for relief, I'm not sure. But, you know, without, again, restating and being redundant, it's just, there are very, very, very limited options at this point. Now, it has been mentioned by one of the residents that there have been challenges throughout the country to some of these projects. But there we would have to find out, number one, if state law was applied to dismantle and maybe relocate or overturn the construction of these turbines, whether it was federal law that was violated. At this point, it would take a tremendous amount of legal research to make that determination, because remember, I mean, while they are turbines and they seem to be pretty consistent in the way they're built and the way they're designed, the laws of 50 states are different. They have different procedures, they have different laws. Federal law applies whether you're in Alaska, Florida, Hawaii, or Maine, but state law obviously only applies within the geographic boundaries of the particular state. So there would be a tremendous amount of research that would need to be conducted, and perhaps, and I'm saying just maybe, there may be an avenue for relief. But as far as what the city can do, the city's options are extremely limited. The residents would, I think, would have a better chance on their own because they are personally affected. But as far as the city of Cranston to sue the town of Johnston, that would really probably set some kind of precedent, because I'm not aware of towns suing one another apart from things like boundary disputes or things of that nature. So, again, I hate to be I think Senator Lombardi called me the skunk in the party, the garden party, but I wish there were more that I could relay, but just giving an honest opinion, I just don't see, based on my research and based on Attorney Marcella's research, that anything has changed since the last time I rendered an opinion. As I said, if we were to look to other states, that is a possibility. I just can't stand here tonight and tell you what they've done, how they did it, what law they applied, what legal theories they utilized. That would take considerable, as I said, considerable research. So, unfortunately, I wish I could say something a little bit more encouraging to the council and to the residents, but there it is.
Councilman Brady, and then Councilman Donegan.
Thank you, Council President. I have two main questions. We brought up it being an issue of not notifying residents beyond 200 feet, which I brought up in past meetings, also being a complaint based on solar farms and people not being notified beyond 200 feet, which are clearly affected within the community. What avenues can we take as a council to increase that variance beyond 200 feet to 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet, whatever it may be, is my first question. My second question is, the residents have asked over 30 days ago from the city of Johnston for the minutes from their meeting, and they've received a lot of attitude, and they still, to date, to my knowledge, have not received these minutes. Did you?
We have some, we need to get a lot more.
Is there any stance that the city can take to help them receive minutes from their meeting?
I'll let you take this first question in a minute. Madam Clerk, our minutes have to be on file with the Secretary of State's office for every meeting within how long of the meeting?
Their minutes must be posted and available within 35 days of the meeting or before that body's next meeting, whichever comes first.
Thank you. So to the residents who live in Alpine Estates, I would recommend that you immediately sue the town of Johnston for a violation of the state open meetings laws and file that complaint as soon as possible, because if they're not giving you minutes from 2 years ago, they're in a clear violation of a law of the state. And Attorney Verdecki, you can answer the first question.
So, and that was going to be my response. Clearly, it sounds to me, and the town of Johnston is no stranger to open meetings violations, so that may very well produce a fruitful result for you. Going back to Councilman Brady's question, the 200-foot requirement is something that comes from the state enabling legislation. I'm not so sure, in fact, I highly doubt that a city or a town has it within its zoning powers to extend that. I believe that would have to come from the state, because the state controls zoning in the state of Rhode Island. The cities and towns are allowed to do what the state delegates to them. And I do not believe that expanding the 200-foot notice requirement is one of those. So, to answer your question, I don't think there's much a city or a town can do, again, to expand that 200-foot barrier. I think that has to come from the state. If we tried to do it, I believe it would probably get struck down. It would be appealed, and I think we would probably lose that.
But we can work with our representatives on the state.
Oh, absolutely.
To lobby for that.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, that 200-foot radius was done at a time when people were applying, to add a garage or an in-law apartment or maybe add another level to their house. So the people within 200 feet, you can understand where, maybe that came from, even though it is an arbitrary number. But back then, I don't believe that they ever envisioned something like 400-foot wind turbines that could have an effect well beyond 200 feet.
And then my last question, if I may, if they, obviously we're going to start monitoring, or we've already began monitoring, spending the city money to monitor the noise nuisance. If we do find that to be in violation, what is the next step if they're above the decibel?
Well, that's a multifaceted question. It's not really capable of a quick answer. I think that would be one of many factors that would have to be considered. I don't know that in and of itself would necessarily be enough, but, and I've stated this in the past, to build some type of a nuisance case, I think you need to go beyond that. I think you need to actually show an adverse health effect, for one thing. The noise effect would be something else, but I think to go in there armed with just that, I don't believe that would be enough to spur action by a court. I think it's going to take more than that. It's a good start, but I think it's going to take more.
Councilman Brady, I would recommend that you draft a resolution to go to the State House to request our leadership from the City of Cranston, the senators and reps, to build enabling legislation to make the zoning barrier 1,500 feet and intra-jurisdictional, so it would cross city lines, because this issue is being derived because the state's zoning laws are so weak. So if you'd like help with that, I can help you write it, but I think since this is your ward and it affects you the most, it should probably come from you, and the rest of the council can get behind it. Councilman Donegan.
That's exactly what I was going to say, and I'd be more than happy to, and supportive of that.
Beautiful. So if the two of you want to write that, we'll get it submitted and get it to the State House as soon as possible. Any other questions?
Go ahead.
Councilmember Stichels.
Yeah, I'd like to just get a comment from Doug Doe, who's in the audience, because I've talked to Doug, and I know that he, but he's here, so he can speak for himself, but that he did notify the councilman for Alpine Estates, and who was also Doug's councilman, Trent Colford, about this, and I wondered if he could just tell us what he did and what happened.
Doug, if you'd like, I will, since we're suspending the rules anyway,
Okay. Douglas Doe, 178 Lippert Avenue. In the fall of 2017, one of the local radio TV stations did a story on this issue. So I emailed Councilman Colford, asked him about it, and suggested it'd be a good idea if the city did something before it blew up like the one-way streets in Roger Williams Park blew up. He wrote me back saying that he was aware of it, and the administration was aware of it, and that's as far as it went. They knew about it a year and a half ago. Why they didn't tell anybody, I don't know. But Councilman Colford knew about it, and he told me the administration knew about it in the fall of 2017. So, that's all I know.
Thank you.
Council Vice President Ficca.
Thank you, Council President. Yeah, just to address Councilman Brady's question, I mean, I think the issue is specific to wind turbines and maybe even solar farms, but to suggest that, going to 1,500 feet, I think there's a practical aspect to it. I think on this type of project, certainly a greater distance may be necessary, and it's going to take some legislation to go outside the city of Johnston, or in this situation, or outside the city of Cranston and others, because we've had that issue with notice on some zoning matters that border on Providence and Warwick. So, but there's a practical aspect and a cost aspect. So to apply generally to, Solicitor Verdecchia mentioned someone who's putting an addition on a home, to have them give notice to 8,000 people in a 1,500-foot radius would be totally impractical and probably not necessary. This is a totally different thing. And just to address, one of the ladies mentioned doing all this testing, but unfortunately, the city, I don't think, can be the expert witness for whatever lawsuit may evolve. Perhaps it could speak to the ACLU. They're always willing to sue our city, so maybe they'll sue Johnston for them. But if there's some civil rights issues and some open meetings violations, they tend to take those cases on because the amount of research, as Solicitor Verdecchia mentioned, is extreme. So, just a few thoughts.
Any other council members before we go back to Councilman Stichels? Councilman Hopkins.
Thank you, President. To the administration, obviously we're all frustrated with this, and we've spent numerous hours going up into this area. As recently as this past Sunday, I was at Jamie's house listening and looking. Has anything been officially sent to the town of Johnston expressing our concerns from the city of Cranston? Because I don't want anybody in the public to think that we're not on their side or we're not paying attention. But I'd like to know, because I'd be the first to send a serious letter to the mayor of Johnston telling him about being a good neighbor and the fact that he has totally turned his face to his neighbors in Cranston.
We have not sent any official documents from the city administration to Johnston, no.
Through the president, should we, as a body, notify Johnston that we are extremely upset with the direction that they've taken in terms of being our neighbor, and that we have a serious problem that is being addressed by our residents, and we should put them on official notice that we're going to pursue this problem?
I'm pretty sure I spoke with him. I said that, and I can't repeat what he said to me, but we can send a letter if you want. I'm sure we'll get the same response we got when we sent the letter to the mayor of Providence of just ignorance that it's their issue, but I have no issue with sending a letter to the mayor of Johnston saying that, we have concerned residents who keep coming to our council chambers asking us to do something that we have little remedy for, but he needs to hear them and abide by their concerns, provide them with minutes, and do everything possible to make sure that their needs are being met.
I'll speak to the mayor about drafting that.
And I appreciate that, because in the past, Dan, prior to you coming on, when Carlos was the chief of staff, he did tell me that when I brought it up to him, that he put in a personal call to the chief of staff of the town of Johnston. And as the president just stated, in no uncertain terms, the mayor of Johnston basically told us what we could do with all of our $500,000 houses, which is extremely disrespectful on his part. And if there is anger from our constituents, it has to be directed towards Johnston. And I think we need to put something in writing. It can't be he said, we said, they said. We need to put it in writing and document the concerns of our constituents that we're angry with the way Johnston has handled this.
Anyone else? Oh, Councilman Stichels, sorry.
Just to go back to Councilman Favicchio's point about the distance, and I think picking up on what Mr. Verdecchia said, I think if it was tied to the scale of the project, that when a project, and you're right, if you're going to put an apartment on your garage, that you don't need to go 1,500 feet, but maybe if it's a project of more than a certain dollar value or more than a certain acreage or more than a certain height, that would trigger this, what you're talking about, a notification to a wider area. That might be the way to massage it.
Just to add something, I would add impact to the community, because sometimes small projects that are low dollar values, like smelting or minor manufacturing, could also have a dire impact to an area that's surrounded by wetlands. So I think as we write this and put it together, we can idea share and amend it as we go through it, but I think some things need to be done. Any additional comments from the council? I will close with, to the members of Alpine Estates, I've been there several times. I've heard the wind farms. I was talking to Councilman Papalauskas before this meeting, saying we should probably take a run up there tonight, because with 60-mile-an-hour winds, they're probably pretty loud. They're off.
When it's windy, they're off.
But that's amazing. They shut them off when they're going to be the loudest and violating noise ordinances. This council does support you. I've had 4 attorneys look at this in the last 3 months. All 4 have come back with the same response, that we're limited in our response. The first we've heard of a civil rights violation. I'm going to ask Attorney Verdecchia to do a little more research on the potential for a civil rights violation. That's a new one. So if you guys have ideas, feel free to keep shooting them to us, and we'll back up where we can. If we keep getting no's and roadblocks from lawyers and administrations, then we're going to be up against it, but we'll keep going down paths if you guys keep thinking of them. Thank you. So thank you. Moving on, there are no resolutions. Report of committees. Finance Committee, Council Vice President Verdecchia.
Thank you, Council President. Council met on the following items. The resolution authorizing real estate tax abatements was passed unanimously in committee. I urge passage.
I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll. Hang on. You can't be behind the rostrum, so I'm sorry. You can, yeah, you can go out there. I just, roll the rules. Sorry. Please continue, Madam Clerk.
What are we're voting on the tax
abatements, real estate tax abatements?
Yes.
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 Next, we have the resolution authorizing motor vehicle tax abatements, also passed unanimously. I urge passage.
Motion to approve? Motion to approve. Second. A motion and a second. Under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember McCollum?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan? Councilmember Green?
Yes.
Councilmember Papalauskas?
Yes.
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 Next, we have tax interest waiver approvals. This also passed unanimously. Urge passage here.
Motion to approve. I have motion approved. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. Under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember McCollum?
Yes.
Councilmember Green?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. Moving on to Ordinance Committee, Council Vice President.
Thank you, Council President. First, we have 1-19-02, Ordinance Amendment of Title 15.12, Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Building Code Scaffolding Permit Required, sponsored by Councilmember McCauley, co-sponsored by myself and Councilmember Hopkins.
Passed unanimously, I believe.
Passed unanimously.
Any motion to approve?
If I may, Council President.
You may.
Director Perillo and I had discussions prior, and there's some wording that has to be added or subtracted, so I ask that we continue to the next council meeting, please.
How much wording? Because it might have to go back to committee if it's significant.
It's just, if I may, sir, it's adding not only scaffolding, but stanchions.
Okay, if it's clarifying, we can continue to the next council meeting. That's fine. I'll send a motion to continue to the next full council meeting.
Second. So moved.
No discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Green?
Yes.
Councilmember Papalauskas?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and just for the gallery, if there are any sort of changes that go to an ordinance that are more than just descriptive in nature, it would require another hearing at a committee to be vetted, so you can't just make a change at a meeting and change the focus of an ordinance. That's why I asked that question. Moving on, Council Vice President, you have the floor.
1-19-04, ordinance amendment of Chapter 10.32.350, Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, No Parking on Certain Streets near schools when in session. This is Duckworth Street, Gansett Ave, Trainer Street, and Packard, sponsored by Councilmember Hopkins. It passed in committee. I don't know if it needed any amendments.
Motion approved. Have motion approved. Do I have a second? Second. Councilman Donovan.
One thing with the updated ordinance, we're not actually restricting or limiting on-street parking on Packard Street, so I would make an amendment to redact Packard Street from the actual title of that, as Packard Street is now being limited to on-street parking.
Is that the form of motion, Councilmember?
Yes.
I have a motion to remove Packard Street from the heading of the ordinance. Second. I have a motion and a second. Under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll on the amendment.
Councilmember Stoll?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Marcus?
Yes.
Councilmember Foley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
John.
Yes.
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Councilmember Foster?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, Council Vice President, you're up.
Okay, well, now we have the ordinance as amended.
Any further motion? Councilman
Motion to approve as amended.
A motion to approve as a member. Councilman Donovan.
Do I have the floor? Yeah. Okay. I would just, I have no, as the representative for Warbury, I have no issue with what this ordinance is actually doing. The only, that I would like to make sure, again, like I mentioned in the committee, that families from Bain are notified prior to this taking effect. And so I would make a formal motion that Section 2 be amended, that this ordinance shall take effect on April 1st, which also conveniently happens to be a Monday. That way, there's adequate time for, let's say if the mayor takes 10 days to sign this, a letter, and it becomes official, a letter can go out and it becomes effective. Everyone can be notified of this prior to taking effect. So, formal motion, amendment, Section 2, this ordinance shall take effect on April 1st.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Under discussion, Councilmember Hopkins.
Thank you, President. I stopped by the school last week and talked with the building principal, and the concern that Councilman Donegan has about notifying everyone, he is aware of that. He was waiting for this to pass until he could send out the information. Once that was done, again, my only concern about setting a hard date is there's going to be some signage that needs to be made and then put up by our Public Works. And by setting a hard date like that, may throw that process off. I'd like to get this in as soon as possible while school is in session. It may take until April 1st anyway to get the signs up and get them done. But to set that date, I think may put a wrinkle in it.
Any further discussion? Councilmember Brady.
If we set the date and we don't enforce tickets or whatever it may be until that date, is that something I feel compromised, or how do you feel? Because I do understand John's concern with making sure the residents are not getting cars towed or whatever it may be, but I also understand your point, so.
I would make a suggestion that the amendment could read something that not to take effect until the school notifies parents of the change. That way there's no date. Once the school notifies the parents of the change, signs will go up, we're good to go. So withdraw your motion and make
I withdraw my motion and make a motion to amend Section 2 that the ordinance shall not take effect until adequate notification to parents and guardians of Hugh B. Bain Middle School students.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Under discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll on the amendment.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Pavelski?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Now do we have to vote on?
On the motion, as amended and amended. So I'll take a motion to approve the amended ordinance.
So moved.
Second. Motion second. Under discussion on the amended ordinance. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll on the ordinance as amended.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Pavelski?
Yes.
Councilmember
Yes.
Yes.
Next, we have 1-19-05, ordinance amendment of Chapter 10.32.401 of Title 10 of the Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, titled Motor Vehicles and Traffic. 10-minute parking, Trainer Street, Gansett Ave, Bain, 10-minute parking, sponsored by Councilmember Hopkins. This was approved. I don't know if there are any amendments in committee, but if there are any issues, we can deal with them now.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Second, and I expect a amendment coming from Councilmember Donovan.
Section 2 amended, this ordinance shall not take effect until notification sent to families of students at QB Bain Middle School.
I'll second. I have a motion and a second. Under discussion, seeing none, clerk, please take the roll on the amendment.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Pavelski?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Yes.
Now on the...
I'll entertain a motion to approve the ordinance as amended.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance as amended. Under discussion, seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Pavelski?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Yes.
Next, last, we have 1-19-06, ordinance and amendment of Chapter 10.12.270, Title 10 of the Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Duckworth Street, Gansett Ave, and Oak Street, sponsored by Councilmember Hopkins, all on the same issue.
I'll entertain a motion to approve. Motion. And a second? Second. Under discussion, Councilmember Donovan, your amendment.
Section 2 ordinance be amended. Section 2, this ordinance shall not take effect until notification sent to families of students at QB Bain Middle School.
Second. I have a motion and a second on an amendment. Discussion, seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Pavelski?
Yes.
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 Now on the...
Now, I'll entertain a motion to approve the ordinance as amended.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion to approve the ordinance as amended and a second. Under discussion, seeing none, clerk, please take the roll on the ordinance as amended.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Pavelski?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Before we move away from the ordinance committee, as soon as I said minor changes are acceptable, the city clerk got up and said she wants to be able to advertise the changes to Councilman McCauley's scaffolding ordinance under an abundance of caution, so we don't violate open meetings laws and Paul Johnston. So I'm going to entertain a motion to reconsider sending that to the full council meeting.
Motion to reconsider.
A motion to reconsider. Do I have a second? Second. Can't do all in favor. Clerk, please take the roll on the motion to reconsider.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Pavelski?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to send 1-19-02 back to the ordinance committee to continue it.
I have a motion to have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Under discussion, seeing none, clerk, please take the roll on the continuance.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Foley?
Yes.
Councilmember Wagner?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember
Yes.
Yes.
And we're done with Bain.
Thank you. Public hearings, this is open to any member of the public to bring any concerns to the Cranston City Council. Seeing none, the portion of the meeting is now closed. Election of city officials. Zoning Board of Review, Rob Hoop has petitioned to be appointed the second alternate on the zoning board, term to expire 1/28/2019. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion to approve. I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Under discussion. Seeing none, please take the roll. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Foley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady? Councilmember Brady?
Yes, sorry.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Vice President Ferricchio?
Yes.
Vice President Farina?
Yes.
Through the chair.
Yes.
There's just a typo on the expiration date. It's January 28th, 2020. 2019's already gone by.
That is true. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for that minor oversight. I have a reappointment of Josh Cantone as the fourth alternate, term to expire 12/31/2019. Do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a second? Second. Under discussion, seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Foley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Councilmember Ferricchio?
Yes.
Councilmember Farina?
Yes. Board of City Officers, there are none tonight. Executive Communications, you all have the report of hiring special counsel and constituents. If you have any questions, now would be the appropriate time to ask them. Director Foley, you have the floor. Councilmember Stichels has his hand up, so pop on up. Councilmember Stichels.
The last meeting I asked about it's on page 6, about what the nature of Golini versus zoning board was. That somebody...
Yes, I was advised by Solicitor Lawson that it was a zoning matter. He didn't have the specifics on that, but it is having to do with a issue regarding zoning in the city.
Well, I kind of guessed it was a zoning matter, since it was against the zoning board. Could I get some information about what the essentials of that case are?
Sure, I can email it to you tomorrow, Councilman.
Okay. Thank you.
For transparency, if you could just CC the full council on it, because it came up at a council meeting.
Sure.
Thank you. Request to be continued in service for 1 year, Deputy Chief Stephen McIntosh, Cranston Fire Department.
Motion to approve.
Oh, hang on. Director Pillow?
Yes. Deputy Chief McIntosh has submitted all the paperwork necessary to continue in service, and we're asking that the council approve him.
Thank you, Director.
Motion to approve.
I have motion to approve. I have a second. Under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins? Yes. Councilmember Vargas? Yes. Councilmember Foley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Councilmember Ferricchio?
Yes. Yes. The advice and consent, as I mentioned earlier, Barbara Ann Fenton was removed from consideration tonight. Under Council President Communications, I did have the Diversity Commission on the docket for tonight. As I was looking at the Diversity Commission that was set up in 2000 over the last couple weeks, I realized it probably isn't set up the most effective way possible to deliver results. In fact, there's only one council member on it. I would want to have one for the majority, one for the minority. There were 5 appointments. It seemed a little loose as to who would come from the administration. It was basically just 2 members of the administration's leadership. I think I'd want to direct that to be more towards personnel, be a little more specific, make some standing members. So I'm actually going to be rewriting that this week and submitting it a little more open. Specifically, it just says members of the community. It doesn't call minority members of the community. It doesn't call community leaders. I think I want to be a little more specific as to some of the skill sets of the people we put on the diversity commission, because, you know, we're sitting in a room with 9 people on it, 8 of them are white men. So I think it needs to be a little more specific as to who should be on the diversity commission as opposed to just people the mayor and I pick. The one thing I would like to report, a lot of the council members yesterday went to pay respects to one of our fallen firefighters. Members of the administration were there. Jeremy Wall, thank you, passed away suddenly last week. With great sadness, we report this to the community. Prayers, hopes for speedy time to his family. I don't know how speedy it could be when you lose your husband and your kids lose their father. So I entertain a moment of silence for our fallen firefighter. Thank you very much. Moving on to council member communications, council member Stakos.
Yes, I wanted a report on the Hope Farm solar facility, the fencing. The fence that's up now is just a regular chain link fence with barbed wire on the top, and I believe the city, when the project was approved by the Plan Commission, stated that it had to be a black
vinyl covering.
Right.
And that is true. So I'll skip Director Perillo since Director Pizzurro's in the room, and ask Director Pizzurro when that ugly metal fence is going to get taken down and the proper covering put up.
The fence facing Hope Road needs to be black vinyl. It's only this section that's facing Hope Road. I've been in communication with the developer about 3-4 weeks ago when I first saw that they had installed that. The barbed wire is a little bit more complicated. I'm going to be looking deeper into that issue. I'm not entirely sure if that was ever in any of our approvals. That came about as a surprise to me during the building permit process. And it wasn't something that was very clear, so it was a surprise. So we're going to take a look at that. In addition, we may have to revisit some of the buffering. So we're out of the vegetation. So.
I just find there are certain corporations that go through the planning process and then they do whatever the hell they want, and they come back and say, gee, sorry, we didn't...
This company was not the ones who went through the development process with us in 2015. After they went through Superior Court over 2+ years, they basically abandoned the project. A company from California picked it up and just thought that everything was all set, and they just started moving ahead. I'm not going to lie about it. It's been difficult working with this developer. We got off to the wrong foot right out of the gate, and we've got issues right now. So I'll be working on that with the Plan Commission, with Building Department, my staff, trying to address some of these issues, but I don't think anyone should think that we're pleased with what's going on at Hope Solar whatsoever.
Well, and the barbed wire, I would think that I don't think there should be any barbed wire there unless they're solar panels escaping.
I don't quite see the need. And I don't think it was in our approvals. If it was not in the approvals that went through the Plan Commission, and that was basically slipped in through the building permit process, that's going to be an issue. It's going to be a big issue. This issue is not going to resolve itself next week or next month. There's probably going to be a challenge, some kind of challenge to any kind of decision I make as DPR chair or through the Plan Commission. But we're going to be working on this. It's disappointing,
And so when could we schedule a report on
Well, I don't think anyone should expect the fencing will be swapped out in the dead of winter at this point. The whole place is all mud. It's not, I wouldn't want them going through there as a mud ball right now, because it'll actually damage whatever other vegetation is on the site. We can periodically update you on this, but I don't think anyone should expect this will be all cleared up in a month or two. This is going to take a while to get through these issues.
Well, maybe we could get a report in 3 months.
Yeah, we can, and I'm here, so you can always ask me questions on that.
In 3 months?
Yeah, I have no issue. Hey, Doug, you still back there? If you can let us know when if the fence comes down, I'm sure you'll remind us. But yeah, we'll put it on the docket for 3 months from today, for that'd be the May council meeting.
That's fine. And I can update it to you periodically in the meantime.
And the buffering, is the city considering fining the company for what they did on the destroying the buffer?
I can't really say how we'll address this. The buffering is, part of it was National Grid. They actually did quite a number on the existing vegetation there. The plantings we put in through our planting plan, the problem is there's a wetland right behind that stone wall. So therefore we couldn't plant anything within 10 feet of the stone wall, which makes shrubs or some kind of planting, spruce, whatnot, that much less useful. So we're going to address that too. We've got some work to do on this.
Councilor Paplaskas, you have a follow-up?
Just have a follow-up on this issue. Jason, while you're up here, before the solar farm goes live or starts feeding energy into the grid, is there anything that the city needs to sign off on? If they were building a building, they're going to get a certificate of occupancy?
They'll have to get their final, I don't know if it's occupancy, there's some kind of final approval from the building department. Because it's not like you open up a Dunkin' Donuts and you get a certificate of occupancy, but along those same lines.
I almost feel that these issues, because I drove by there today and I saw the fencing, it looked like a prison, with the barbed wire on the top, and I know it's all muddy, so it's going to be hard to swap a fence out now. I almost feel like before they go live, this should be rectified and handled before we give them approval to finish. Yeah. And then then it's a battle from there on. So
I think that's one leverage that we have on them is the building permit, and that's typical with what we do with normal developers who are not performing.
Okay. So thank you.
Okay. One follow-up. I do agree with Councilmember Paplaskas that to give away the leverage of letting them operate while the fence is still wrong or the buffer hasn't been solved, I think would be a mistake. The only leverage we have right now to get them to be in compliance, quite frankly, is the money they stand to make off the solar farm. Once we give them that, we lose all credibility and all rights to make them do anything. So I don't want to have to pass anything to make it happen. So if you keep us in the loop and let us know what's going on,
I'll definitely update you on that.
Thank you. Councilmember Hopkins.
Thank you, President. While Mr. Pizzullo was up, I just wanted to let the council know that I did receive a call from Cranston Country Club in regards to this facility. And what they're complaining about is a runoff from their property, from the solar farm. The mud and the dirt, whatever is there, is running off into the river, coming down into the golf course, which may have a negative impact on their irrigation system come springtime. So I've talked to Mr. Pizzullo about that, and before they are in compliance, I'd like to make sure that is looked at and taken care of.
Yeah, we'll take a look at make sure their soil erosion measures are in place.
Thank you, Director Pizzullo. I believe Councilmember Hopkins, you still have the floor?
Yes, Yard Works. I think we've heard from Mr. Wilson and Mr. Beardsley about the status of what's happening there, and I just want to talk a minute in Director Perillo and I have discussed this a bit, but just to let the council know, this issue of fines. Coincidentally, I wrote to the court and asked the court what their policy was on assessing fines on building code violations. and I asked for some examples of people who had been fined and how much they'd been fined and whether the money was collected. And the response I got, which I'd be glad to send to everyone, was basically that they didn't have any specific records of how much fines there were in the last calendar year or how many people had been fined, that kind of thing. So they didn't have any records, but the general policy, according to the memo from the, I can't remember her name, but she's the staff person for the chief judge, was that the fines start and are assessed after the second violation. So there's a first violation sent to the property owner, and then if they don't do anything within 30 days, I believe, there's a second violation is supposed to be sent. So what the court indicated was that that's when the fine clock typically starts running. Now and so that bothers me that this is not, when the case goes before the judge, the Yardworks case in a few days, that is not the city's stated policy. It's going to be that if, as Mr. Perillo has said and as Mr. Wilson has been told, it would be that if Yardworks went into compliance, then there would be no fine at all. So they were noticed, Yardworks was noticed in June that there was a first violation, and they had 30 days, well, they were supposed to have 30 days until the second violation was noticed. That was then delayed for some unknown reason even further. But once that second violation was noticed, I think they should be fined. I don't think they should get a free pass if they drag, they're costing the city money in inspections, they're costing a legal time that we have to pay for because we have to go to court, and they're causing aggravation to the neighbors. So once I can see you get the first violation, you get a chance to know that you made a mistake, and you have a month to correct it, or a month to correct it. But if you don't correct it in the month, then the fines should start. And you certainly shouldn't, in this case, have fines waived for 6 months. Because then the message is, would we do that with someone who committed any kind of offense? Just say, hey, if you don't do that anymore, you're all set. If I punch Councilman Brady, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to break your jaw. I won't break your jaw again. So that's just not the way that our system should work. People should get a warning, and then if they don't do something, there should be a penalty. So I just want the council to know that I think this is a problem that is at the feet of the building inspector and of the administration.
Thank you, Councilor Douglas. Thank you, the gallery. I think you had one more thing.
I don't know if anybody from the administration wants to comment on that, or I'll go on to the next thing.
Well, to my knowledge, Councilman, I believe that case was still adjudicated. I don't think any fines are levied until the case is finally adjudicated. I don't believe the second notice automatically kicks in the fines. I believe this process has been ongoing. I believe Thursday is hopefully going to be the final adjudication of these violations.
I hope some fines are levied.
That's going to be up to Mr. Iglesi's recommendation to the judge. He has that discretion to do that. I know I've talked to him about this, and let's just say I'm not sure what I told you earlier may be in tax still. There may be some changes to that decision on Thursday.
Okay, thank you. The last item is for Councilman Pavicchio and maybe Councilman Farina. They may have post-traumatic stress syndrome when they see this on the agenda. I brought this up a number of years ago. Every year the mayor sends out a tax letter and with the tax bills that we all know. And the back of that tax letter is blank. And what I have suggested over the years is that the back of that letter be used to encourage recycling. And an ordinance was actually passed indicating that. It's really never been done. And when I brought it up in the past, what happens is that, has happened is that certain members of the administration, none of whom are in this room, so I don't want to cast aspersions on the people in the room, have said, oh, gee, we forgot, I'm sorry. So I'm putting it on the agenda here, and I'd like it on the agenda until the tax bills go out. I think that this is a great opportunity to not only educate people about recycling, but also we have a lot of great programs in the city that we ought to be proud of. And we ought to be telling people, you know, hey, we've got a Alzheimer's daycare program at the senior center. And, you know, we have a youth, very inexpensive youth day camp in the summer. And we have a tree planting program. And, you know, a whole list of things that would, I think, is perfect timing when people are sending people a bill saying, hey, you got to pay taxes, to say, well, you know, hey, we're doing stuff with your money. And so I would just urge the administration to do this. The cost should be minimal since we're already paying for the mailing, for the paper, for printing the one side with the mayor's letter. And I would ask that it remain on the agenda until the tax bills go out.
I don't think the mayor is opposed to it. Again, if it's an ordinance, I'm assuming that it's something that we have to do.
The tax letter has an ordinance, but the content is decided by the mayor and the administration. So Councilmember Stikos, in his credit, has asked every year, I think for 6 years, to put something about recycling programs, and I think it happened once.
I know the mayor said, I just speak to him about it, I know he said there is a little blurb on the bottom of the letter regarding encouraging recycling and so forth, but not to the extreme that the councilman is talking about regarding programming and so forth. But I can ask the mayor.
Councilmembers.
Thank you. Just to follow up on what Councilmember Stikos just said, I believe a couple of years ago we talked about putting with the sewer bill reference to the Veolia sewer cleanout that you can do from the street to your property line. So that might be something to add with the sewer bill, is the free service to clean out for the sewer line. A lot of people don't know that that's offered.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Council Vice President.
Yes, just to follow up on this again, I don't know if there are any programs, other types of incentive programs used in other cities to incentivize people to recycle. I don't know if we could consider, maybe we could look at doing something out additionally, and we can even post something on the website. I don't know whether we can give them anything, but maybe there's, because it is important that we increase our recycling in order to maintain the requirements the DEM has for us.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brady, you have the floor next, sir.
Thank you, Council President. We already have an update from the residents of Alpine for the Johnson Wind turbines. I appreciate that. Did we have an update on the Adopt a Spot program? And then I just had one more thing to read into the record that was distributed to all of us from the residents tonight that chose not to speak.
Yes, I spoke to Solicitor Lawson today, and he is coming up with a program for the Adopt a Spot. He believes he's going to structure it around what the state does, and then we're going to get input from Director Mason and Director Vittori to see what they want to add, just kind of really ensure that all bases are covered regarding dig safe, the authority, insurance, abandonment, stuff like that that's happened in the past. Director Vittori is a little uneasy about going forward with it because of, I guess in the past, there's been some negative things regarding that, but I told him I think it's a good thing, and I think if we stage it and put the right criteria in place, it can be positive, so it's definitely something we're working on.
Is this something maybe we can get into effect by the spring? Is that
Definitely.
promising?
Definitely.
Okay. And I just had one other thing though. A resident came tonight and passed this out to all of us and asked that I read it into record. We currently have an ordinance where no private property owner within the city shall discharge water onto a public roadway directly or indirectly so as to create a safety hazard, health, safety, and welfare concern, including but not limited to a road hazard for motorists or person utilizing the roadways and/or cause damage to the roadway and/or adjoining fixtures. We also have the ability to assess a fine. I brought up in the past that Natick Avenue has to be looked at for continuing flooding, but he also cited pictures for his property, which is... Did you get a copy of this? Dan? I'll give you a copy of the name, but it's off of Skylia Ave, and I'll give you the pictures to familiar with.
Scalaria Ave.
Scalaria, apologies.
No worries.
I look forward to Director Mason and Director Corso. I know they try to be lenient regarding water discharge because some people have very little ability to discharge it elsewhere, but when it does cause a hazard regarding ice and snow, it's something that has to be addressed, for sure.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yeah, Councilman Brady, could you explain these pictures a little bit? There's a front-end loader, is that the city?
Sure, that's the city removing continually. I guess this is the second time we've been asked to remove snow, and that's discharge coming from the resident's house that continually makes an ice down the road, from what I'm being told from the resident. I have driven by once and did witness it.
Is the snow caused by the resident?
No, the ice is concerned. It's coming off of the person's yard, out of the person's yard through a drain system onto the road, which is creating ice.
I see. And then the other pictures are just showing the ice?
Yeah, basically breaking up the ice from the city standpoint.
So this one here, they're not, the third one in, is it the third one? Yeah, the third one in where there's a house in the U driveway, that's water, that's ice caused by the discharge?
By the drainage coming down the street.
I see. So is this the person who's complaining?
I believe it's their house. Yeah, it stops in front of their house.
Okay. And then this is just water going down a gutter?
Yeah, I think it's just to show the continued flow from that house, the drainage.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember McCauley.
Thank you, Council President. I just need a clarification on this ordinance. Would that also include prohibit people from plowing snow into the street under this ordinance?
I think we're covering that.
It does.
It does.
That's the ordinance the police department uses to enforce the fact that people push snow into the street when they're not supposed to.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Councilwoman. I'll yield to Councilwoman.
Sure. Councilwoman Vargas.
Thank you. Kind of just to echo what Councilman McCauley had just mentioned. So can you walk through the process when there is a business or a resident or property owner, let's just say that, who does plow their snow all out through the street or against the sidewalk at all? So is there a verbal warning first? Is it, because you had mentioned the police department goes out and kind of just gives them I would assume FYI, you can't do this, the slap on the wrist. But what is a protocol, if you can walk me through it?
I'm assuming a verbal warning to the homeowner or operator the equipment would be the first step, and if it continued, I believe they would have the authority to send them to municipal court for a violation.
Okay. So if it's so when the police department goes out, they give just a warning at first, is that it?
They have the discretion to give a warning, or they can issue a summons right then and there.
So it's,
That's what
okay, so it's up to the
it's in their
discretion.
discretion, yes.
So do we have records at all of anyone in your office, from your office, of constituents that have called regarding the same property from year to year? And how do we address it when we realize at this point they have not been cited or summoned and it's an ongoing basis? I'm just curious.
We have had a list of people discharging water because this fall's been very wet, a lot of rain, and we've had a lot of calls about discharge of water, and a lot of times it is the same residences. So Director Corso tries to go out there to mediate the problem. But again, once it becomes a hazard for the roadway, I mean, water into the road is not bad. However, once it starts to freeze, now it's a public safety issue. We have to send a sander out there or plow it or bulldoze it. That's when it becomes a problem. So we try to work with the owners as best as possible.
Does that apply also for someone who does not, whether it's a property owner, business, or residential, that does not plow their sidewalk?
There is an ordinance, it's a separate ordinance, I believe, regarding cleaning your sidewalks. And again, we try not to be too overburdensome on homeowners. I mean, some of them are elderly and they don't have the authority or the ability to do it. But the ones that are chronic abusers, I believe the police department keeps an eye on them.
Okay, so if I notice, if it snows tomorrow, it snows on the weekend, it snows next week, and I continue to see this same business, and I'm not trying to make this, again, an income generator or anti-business, but what I want to know is, how do we keep people accountable? Because we continue to see the same business over and over, or residential owners that are not plowing the street. How do we make sure that, A, if they are elderly, senior citizens, do we knock on their door and say, what's going on, how can we help as a city? But then if that's not the case and they're just not doing it, then what steps do we take? Like, how much is too much?
Yeah, I understand. The police department generates, their IMC computer system generates a call for service anytime a police officer goes to a house. So if they've been to that house 3, 4, 5 times over the winter for the same complaint, most likely that's going to result in a citation. So every time they go anywhere, that contact is documented. And if it continues, then they can always take that extreme step of giving a citation.
And the reason why I'm asking...
favorite.
Oh, I apologize.
This is not again, our goal is not to summons homeowners for not shoveling.
Well, I get it. It's not shoveling, but it's also making sure that that our kids, when they're walking to school on some of these main roads, that they're not walking on the street. So, for example, it was not a student, but it was someone who was on a wheelchair, right? And can't think of the name of the scooter, right? And they were on Broad Street, and I saw them. And I've seen them, this is the second time, and I took pictures of the location, but again, we just don't want to, I want to make sure that we're keeping people accountable. Absolutely. And that there's no incident that happens with a student or any one of us in the city. So that's my reason for asking. So
yes.
Thank you.
Any other council member communications? Council Vice President Favicchio.
Thank you, Council President. Just one thing, I got a call today from a constituent about Poplar Drive. Behind the fence, there's supposedly debris that's being left, and he was asking whether or not there could be some fill put in there. I guess there's a gully and quite a bit of water gets in there, and people walk behind there. Perhaps Councilman Hopkins and I could take a look at it, but I believe it's owned by Garden City. I think it's owned by the owners of Garden City and not by the city itself. But it's kind of the post office, parking lot, the fence there, it's behind there. So if you could look into that.
Sure.
Thanks. Any additional council member communications? Councilman Wood?
I'm not sure, it's more of a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Is the sanitary committee here in the city of Cranston still active? And how much do we hold cemeteries in our city accountable? And it's private property, but at the very same time, I'm just curious, like, do we have a committee, and B, what is the role of the
There's a
committee?
historic cemeteries committee, which would govern historic cemeteries. Any active cemeteries would be governed by city ordinances on the books, which would be enforced by building inspector for building code violations, and I believe the police for any vandalism or oversight.
Yes.
So there are ordinances on the book that do govern cemeteries, but it would be governed by the building inspector and the police.
Okay.
And the historic cemeteries is for the ones that get overgrown that people aren't maintaining anymore.
Right. Thank you, Council President.
So you know the council member communications. That section of the meeting is now closed. Introduction of there is no old business. Introduction of new business, Madam Clerk.
Proposed ordinance 2-1901, an amendment of Title 8 of the Code of the City of Cranston, Health and Safety for plastic bag reduction, to be referred to Ordinance Committee for hearing on March 14th. Proposed ordinance 2-1902, an amendment of Chapter 2.08.260 of the Code of the City of Cranston entitled Administration and Personnel for Board of Canvassers, to be referred to the Finance Committee for hearing on March 4th. Proposed ordinance 2-1903, an amendment of Chapter 10.32 of the Code of the City of Cranston entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic for Union and Terrace four-way stop, to be referred to ordinance for hearing on March 14th. Proposed ordinance 2-1904, an amendment of Title 9 of the Code of the City of Cranston entitled Public Peace, Morals, and Welfare, New Residence Packet, to be referred to the Finance Committee for hearing on March 4th. Proposed ordinance 2-1905, an amendment of Chapter 17 of the Code of the City of Cranston entitled Zoning, a change of zone for 0 Phoenix Avenue, the former highway garage, to be referred to the Ordinance Committee for hearing on April 11th. Proposed ordinance 2-1906, an amendment of Chapter 17 of the Code of the City of Cranston entitled Zoning for 950 Phoenix Avenue for signage and commercial use. Petition filed by PCB Store Development LLC to be referred to Ordinance Committee for hearing on April 11th. Proposed ordinance 2-1907, an amendment of Chapter 10.12 of the Code of the City of Cranston entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic for Norfolk Street, turn prohibition removal, to be referred to Ordinance Committee for hearing on March 14th. Proposed ordinance 2-1908, an amendment of Chapter 10.12 of the Code of the City of Cranston entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic for Norfolk Street, runaway removal, to be referred to Ordinance Committee for hearing on March 14th. Resolution urging the General Assembly to pass enabling legislation for municipal tobacco licensing, to be referred to Safety Services and Licenses for hearing on March 4th. Resolution encouraging the administration and the City Council grant writer to work on funding for a park at the old highway garage property on Phoenix Avenue, to be referred to the Ordinance Committee for hearing on March 14th. The following claims are all property damage claims, to be referred to the Claims Committee for hearing on March 14th, and they are all from alleged incidents. City of Pawtucket, December 7th, 2018. Lori Spinetta, December 29th, 2018. Karen Giacomo Dill, December 29th, 2018. Wayne and Louise Sale, January of 2019. Renee Street, January 7th, 2019. Jonathan Root, February 16th, 2019. Gail Cerisi Sylvia, January 19th, 2019. Jay Larson, January 19th, 2019. Deborah Miller, January 20th, 2019. Dennis St. Patricia Bove, January 20th, 2019. William Farrell, January 20th, 2019. Richard Lefke, January 20th, 2019. Vinod Doshi, January 20th, 2019. James Vincent Jr., January 21, 2019. Angelo Pizzullo, January 24, 2019. David Gagalo, January 24, 2019. Thomas Gibb, January 25, 2019. Joseph Beaumont, January 30, 2019. Justin Funes, it's F-U-N-E-S.
Fausto Funes.
Thank you. January 31, 2019. Lisa Dwyer, February 8, 2019. Shirley Thurber, February 8, 2019. And Robert D. Wolf, February 17, 2019.
I would entertain a motion to send all the business to the proper committees. So moved. A motion a second, under discussion, seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes. There is no miscellaneous business on the clerk's desk. The next city council regular monthly communication will be on Monday, March 25th, 2019. If there is no further business coming before the council tonight, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.